Hey guys, so off for a little walk today. So I thought today I would talk about King David. So there is actually some archaeological evidence coming to light now um, about how King David might have existed as a historical figure in biblical archaeology. What a shock! The Bible was right about something. I know. Now, to non-Christians, this might be kind of surprising. Um, And I'm going to talk a bit about who David is first, because I remember being in class one time and someone was doing a presentation on ancient Roman religion. They decided to do it on early Christianity. And the way they presented made me ask the way they talked about it made me ask this following question. Okay, I said, what was so different about how Christians view Jesus from Judaism that Christianity became a distinct religion from Judaism? Their response, and I quote, "Eek! I don't know the answer to this. I want to be embarrassed because I be like I don't know anything. Eek!" Yeah, like a lot of people don't know about who King David is or why that's important. So, according to the Bible, King David was king of Israel and the kingdom of Israel and Judah, and what would have been the 10th century BC. So that's like 1,000 years before Jesus. Jesus was a member, according to the Bible, the heir of that dynasty, because in the Bible, God promised King David that his dynasty would last to the end of the world, and hence the Messiah, hence the Jewish Messiah, hence Jesus being the Messiah, and Jesus' genealogy in the Gospel of Matthew lists him as a direct descendant of King David of the house of David. So, anyway, according to the biblical account, before David was king, there was another king named King Saul. Saul was anointed by the prophet Samuel and disobeyed God in a number of areas. Sometimes he was just too prideful and disobedient to offer sacrifice in an improper fashion. Other times he was too soft on people, like destroying the Amalekites. He spared their king, who, based on like Jewish oral traditions, we today would have called the Amalekite king a war criminal, and it led to like later death and persecution for the Israelites later on, because Saul didn't obey. And as a result, God took the kingdom away from Saul and agreed to give it to David. At the time, David was a young boy, shepherd boy, the youngest in his family. And eventually he was taken into Saul's service because by singing hymns and psalms, he was able to drive away evil spirits, and also served as Saul's shield bearer, or armor bearer, if I recall correctly. Anyway, the story goes that in the Valley of Elah, which would have been on the borderlands of the land of the Philistines, David fought a giant named Goliath. Would have been something around 9 to 10 feet tall. And by simply praying to God, taking a slingshot and hitting him in the forehead and cutting off his head, none of the other Israelite soldiers were brave enough to face him in single combat. Because David trusted in God, he was able to defeat him. Later on, Saul became jealous of all of David's victories, and he had to go into hiding for many years. And even though he had no intention to harm King Saul, and in many occasions went out of his way to sneak into like King Saul's camp, take stuff, send a messenger saying, "Hey, bring it back," just to show Saul that, hey, I'm not interested in hurting you. I'm loyal. David suffered a lot of persecution because of it. Eventually, after a short civil war with one of King Saul's sons, he united the tribes of Israel under his rule, and established an empire and conquered the neighboring enemies of the Israelites. And he went on to write many books of many of the Psalms in the Old Testament. But anyway, if you're interested in reading more about the life of King David, trust me, I'm leaving out a bunch of stuff. I think they've literally made movies about his life. It's so exciting and fascinating. But yeah, look up his story in the Bible. It's in the book of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, in the Douay-Rheims Bible. Yeah, anyway, so on to the evidence we actually have for his existence. Now, most of the evidence we have for the Israelite king in Judean kingdoms is from like a few centuries later, where it's much clearer. Like from like the 8th century BC onwards, I'm not going to lie. People really don't even argue that the Bible, don't even try to argue that up against the Bible's historical document after that date. Too much. Like they might say you may have a thing off here or a thing off there, but even secular atheist scholars think it's pretty reliable after that point. 10th century, there's a little bit more debate. That said, this is something that I should state. It is not controversial at all in biblical archaeology to believe that King David existed. Not at all. None. Period. Not. There may be some, but even Israel Finkelstein, who is one of the bigger skeptics, whenever they cite a skeptic of the Bible and biblical archaeology, it's usually him. He says, yeah, he thinks Saul, David, and Solomon, these biblical figures existed as historical figures. What he would question would be the prominence, who they might be. So, we do have a bit of evidence for the existence of David in the archaeological record, specifically. So, I think the first evidence we have is about 300 years after, 300 years after the fact. People can forgive me if I'm misquoting that. That is called the Misha Stele. The Misha Stele brags about is by an Aramean king mentioned in the Bible, and he's boasting about the enemies he captured and destroyed and conquered. One of the kings he boasts about was the king of Judah, who is referred to as the king of the house of David. So if there is a house now, so I think it's not even 300 years, maybe even 200 years. So it would be like, so at that point in time, mentioning David, historical figure, would be like, right about now, us talking about George Washington or King George III. It would have been a while back, but like, yeah, it's within recent enough memory that it's like, yeah, it's probably not made up stuff. Yeah. So yeah, we do have that as the house of David, and now there is some debate of whether or not it means king's uncle, because the name David could also mean uncle, but based on the context, he's talking about Israelite kings, and he's bragging about big significant people you killed. You're going to brag about killing the king and his uncle, or you're going to brag about beating the king of Israel and the king of the house of David. That's kind of like strong. That makes a bit more sense. So even Finkelstein thinks it refers to David. Yeah, but that's not all. So here, let me draw this in the sand. So this is, I need this because you'll need a diagram for all this to make sense. Here, let me come over here. So this is basically what they found. So in Khirbet, a place called Khirbet Qeiyathah, they found a city that was designed basically like this. You had a city wall, and attached to the city wall you have houses, so like this. So basically the back of the wall of your house would be like also double as a city wall, which in those days, keep in mind, this was before the time of cannons, catapults, and you had archers. Like, it's actually not as unsecure as it may seem. Like, because if, what if the soldiers break through? Well, if the soldiers break through that wall, damaging your house is the least of your worries. But yeah, meanwhile, in other places, they would have it like this. You have this house there and a street in between, further north. Now, the cities that were like this, Professor Dr. Joseph Garfinkel at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, he was noticing this pattern in other cities, and they all, and here was the map basically. So, yeah, the Kingdom of Israel here, and this is Israel, and here's the border between Israel and Judah. And over here will be the Philistines. you'd have Khirbet Qeiyafa right here. You'd have another, and that you'd have but you'd also find cities in that design here, 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 and here, all dating from around the 10th century BCE, the time of David. And guess what's in the center of these places? A little city we call Jerusalem. So why is it significant? It's because it shows that at that time there was like similar material culture. It means there's a similar architecture. It means similar material culture, same societies going on there at the time, centered on Jerusalem, i.e. the Kingdom of Judah, Kingdom of David. So it's kind of like this, kind of like, say, if you see like Japanese architecture, it's all centered around Tokyo, that's like, okay, that's Japan. That's how we can tell a lot about societies in the past, actually, not just Israel, Judah, but just in general. But now, here's the counterpoint people might argue against the Bible. Well, it stops here. That means the kingdom of David would have just been in Judah, like Finkelstein said. And because we have like fortresses that are on a different design, like I mentioned before, further north up here. So Finkelstein argues that there was the kingdom of Israel in the north, Judah in the south, and that they were never united till in the time of David, and that only came later. That is one way you could interpret the evidence, I suppose. I have a counterpoint. So let's not forget, in the Bible, there was supposed to have been a civil war between David and Ishbosheth, the son of Saul. So, and prior to that, this area down here, by all accounts, there was a lot of like bandit activity. The Philistines were right here constantly invading. You could not really secure this border until later on. Up here, you had a slightly different culture. Still is, I would argue, still Israelite Hebrew. But still Israelite Hebrew. But yeah, like they would have had their own style, and they would have had their pre-existing fortresses. You couldn't have built these fortresses down south until a bit later, is what I'm arguing. And these fortresses still would have been built within a similar time frame to each other anyway. Even north, if you look at north and south Israel and Judah, the lands we're talking about, like this is a lot of desert around here, and highlands and stuff like that. Well, here not so much. So it's not surprising that you get slightly different material culture. And prior to all this, like prior to time of Saul, there was no unified Israelite kingdom. They're all separate. They were basically a confederacy, having civil wars among each other. Basically, the only thing that really seemed to unify them was the worship of the God Yahweh. And even then, like they worshipped other gods. According to the Bible, they weren't supposed to, but they did. So what I'm arguing is that perhaps the difference in stuff from here and here at is more carryover from the Civil War. And once David united all, well, hey, let's tear down this fortress and build a whole new thing from scratch just to make it match the aesthetic style of the fortress we've already built down south. No, you're just going to settle people up here. But yeah, that's like evidence. It's the first evidence we've come up with in archaeology so far. And yeah, things in archaeology take time and years of that we have for like the hard evidence of the existence of King David and his dynasty. Clearly more needs to be coming along. This is just the beginning, obviously. And they are making biblical archaeological discoveries every day. So like, for example, I think a few months ago it came out that they found the oldest inscription mentioning the name of the God of Israel by name, Yahweh, they've ever found. And they found it in a Mount Ebal, which would have been where the altar that Joshua was supposed to build was supposed to have been. And we have mention of it from the time of the judges, basically. So 200 years before King David. So we have evidence of Yahweh worship up there. Which would have been the main cultic site according to the Bible, in case you're wondering. So that's another confirmation of Bible. Again, there's controversy over that as well. That's not to say, oh, it's sloppy archaeology. Like, here's the thing in archaeology, people debate things. That's just how it is. We're taught credible scholars do debate things. And so, like, some credible scholars think, yes, it is. No, it's not. What they found in the inscription was like a curse tablet was scratched on to like some lead, and that's what's mainly being debated, based on the epigraphy, and I think some tests I did. It does date to that time, but there does seem to be intentional scratchings on it, and that is what it seems to say. I will probably make another video. But that's a video for another time. This is about David, and I do want to make a video about that, but another day. That's just to show, like, there is debate in archaeology. But yeah, like, it is not debated that really among me. It's quite mainstream now to say that yes, David as a historical figure existed. There's nothing unusual, surprising, or shocking in the world of biblical archaeology that says that. What may be debated is how extensive David's kingdom was. And apparently there is a growing, according to Finkelstein, I remember listening to a podcast by him a while back, biblical archaeology is increasingly taking the Bible more seriously. Yeah. So anyway, just my walk and talk about biblical archaeology for today. Nice little village over there, nice church steeple. It's not a Catholic church of any sort. It's a Baptist church, from what I understand. Not many this area has not been majority Catholic for like centuries, so. But yeah, it's a pretty place nonetheless. Anyway, God bless. Read your Douay Rheims Bible. If not, look, you can find Douay Rheims Bibles online. But yeah. Anyway, God bless. Have a great day.